anymore if you share information that's not yours. But what's your information? What's your right in this new situation? That will be the topic for the next 2 hours. My name is Ruben Maes. I will be moderating this session, and part of my job is asking you to switch off your mobile phone if it's still on. So you have to leave the digital environment for just 2 hours, or switch your mobile phone to a silent mode. That's also, of course, possible. We found some really wonderful experts in the field of copyright who will take a seat in the panel later on. But this is also a discussion with, of course, the audience, because you're here Saturday afternoon, so you have probably something with the topic that you find so interesting that you're here in such a beautiful day. And there is also this afternoon, there is all possibility to also intervene in the discussion. So if you have any questions, and it can be very technical sometimes, feel free to react or ask a question. Just raise your hand and we'll make sure that's the possibility. Just to start with you, who of you did lately, last few years, downloaded illegally some music, films, information? Please raise your hand. Okay, keep your hands up, keep your hands up, okay. And who of you knew it was illegal? Okay. And who of you, keep your hands up, and who of you felt guilty towards the creator of the information you downloaded? Yeah? You were the first one to raise your hand. Let's see if I can get there. Yeah, there. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. In English or Polish? I have to. Can you do it in English?
Yeah, of course.
So, you downloaded it illegally, you knew it was illegal, and you felt guilty. And still you did.
Yes, because I have no money to buy it. Because I want to have some information or some music. And I have money to buy a CD, because in Poland it's really expensive to buy a normal CD. And I feel guilty because I know I stole something.
Yeah.
So it's bad.
Do you have a car?
Yeah.
Did you buy it or did you steal it?
Yes, I buy it.
So what's the difference?
No, it's not different. It's the same. It's the same situation.
Is there someone who doesn't feel guilty? Saying, no, I'm not guilty, and it's just information. I can use information. Now, nobody reacts because I'm going to you. Yeah, here. Okay, you don't feel guilty?
No, I feel guilty, but I wanna say that if I steal car,
yeah,
that person don't have car. But if I download programs, there are two programs, and this is a different situation.
So this is a... So a lot of people feel less guilty now. So there's a sort of endless amount of information you can just share. It's just sharing.
Yes, I think that.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. It's also very important because I know during the discussion we will try to find him or her. Is there someone of Google in here? If you know this one person from Google, can you please point at him or her? No? It must be. It must be. There's always someone of Google. No, we'll find out, because Google has a very important role also in this discussion, but we'll get there later on. As mentioned, we have some really experts in the field of copyright, and we try to get the different approaches clear during this 2-hour debate. So probably in the end we don't have a solution, but for you as an audience it will be clear what the different positions are and what the possible solutions for the future could be. Of course, it's also a very political discussion, so in the end we're also going to discuss what should be the political decisions maybe made during the Polish presidency even for this issue on copyright. I'm going to introduce you to you one by one, starting with Joost Smiers. He's a political scientist. You may always applaud when someone comes to the front. Ladies and gentlemen, Joost Smiers. I'm just going to ask you a few questions. As a political scientist, you're also connected to the Utrecht University of Fine Arts. You're also author of a publication that's now distributed in all different countries, especially on this topic, isn't it?
The title of the book is Imagine There's No Copyright and No Cultural Conglomerates. The second part is maybe even more important.
And what's your basic...
You can read it also in Chinese.
In Chinese, okay. For those people who want to read in Chinese. what's your basic approach for this discussion afternoon? So the moment you start talking this afternoon, this is the approach of Joost Smiers.
The big question is, in what kind of society we like to live. Do we like to live in a society in which there are only a few major companies that control what we will read, what we will see, what we will hear? Or will we have a diversity of those kind of companies, enterprises? Do we like to live in a society in which there are few stars who tell us what is nice, interesting? Or do we like to live in a society in which there are many, many artists who can make a living from the work? Do you like to live in a society in which there is no censorship, because copyright is an extreme form of censorship? Or do you like to live in a society in which you can change the work of an artist, comment on it in the work? And now, it's quite clear what would be my choice, maybe your choice. Then we have to do two things at the same time. So what is copyright? Because then we take away the investment protection for big industries who invest in blockbusters, bestsellers, that push aside the diversity that we really need to have. And at the same time we take away the censorship, because we may change the films of Disney, and that is what we should do to make them more nice. At the same time we should use competition policies, revitalize competition policies to cut market dominating cultural enterprises in many pieces, and the result will be a level playing field. So we have two paradigm shifts, and one paradigm shift is there already, of course, digitization. And it is normal market, extremely normal market, the level playing field. There will be a chance for many, many artists to present their work, not censored. For the public to make their own choice, because they will not be pushed by the marketing efforts of big cultural conglomerates, because you know from the film of Hollywood 50-60% is marketing. Just to say, yeah, that is what the public likes. Then a small announcement would be enough. When you are making such a lot of marketing, which is apparently falsifying competition, then you do something the public does not like, and you have to tell them any moment, this is nice. So what I like to bring back is a normal situation in which the public, we as active citizens, are not anymore passive consumers, that we can make our own choice, that we live again in a democratic society.
Stop. Yeah. This is, you have to leave some ammunition during the debate, but this is very clear what your approach is. I'm not sure we're going to have these two paradigm shifts in 2 hours, but we get close. We'll try. Thank you very much. That's good. The other panelist is Falkvinge. I'll try to pronounce it right. And he's founder of the Pirate Party, which is, and you can applaud also for Falkvinge. And it's hard, because maybe the Pirate Party, for a lot of people, may be already known, for a lot of people, maybe not. When I think of a pirate, I think someone with a wooden leg, one eye, and a parrot. That's not in your, okay, one eye. It's not in your case. What's the Pirate Party?
Essentially, we're the next generation civil liberties movement. We're saying that we think it's a problem that politicians today think the net is something that you can take away from kids when they've been naughty. We're saying that the net is an integral part of society, and citizens exercise their fundamental rights through the net today. Therefore, access to anonymous, unfiltered and unmonitored internet is as fundamental a right as the rights that we exercise through it. So, on the topic of copyright and the copyright monopolies, we see that there are businesses today that claim that their business interests take precedence over our fundamental rights. And as a politician, it is my duty to take the big picture and say that, no, if you run a business, it's your job to make money under the constraints of society. You do not get to take away citizens' rights, even if that's the only way you can make money.
And why do you call it a pirate party? Because my association with pirates is not really very positive.
Well, it wasn't really us who chose the name.
But you kept it.
We did, but it was Hollywood who called us pirates because we decided to stand tall about sharing is caring. Civilization has always depended on people talking to one another, sharing culture, sharing knowledge, and all of a sudden in this generation, that's a crime. That does not make sense, and it's contrary to everything we know about the evolvement, how civilization evolves. So we decided to take a stand about it. And today, the Pirate Party is present in about 50 countries. We have seats in the European Parliament, and we expect to take seats in the Berlin Parliament next weekend.
But this sharing part, let's connect it to the pirates. The pirates were not really talking about sharing. They took. It was another person's property they took. That's also the same thing people saying about the Pirate Party. And of course, the organization is talking about free speech. It's not your property. You're stealing it.
Well, it's not about property. I mean, if you observe something and make a copy of your own, using your own raw materials, I think you should have a right to do that. The copyright monopoly limits that right. So the copyright monopoly is a limitation to your property rights. Now, it might be justified, but we must make very clear that this monopoly is a limitation on property rights. And it's not stealing. Sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing culture has always advanced society, and it continues to do so.
Thank you very much. May I ask you also to take a seat? I'm going to ask you to sit on the opposite side. Oliver Herrgesell. He's a former journalist and executive vice president for communication, public affairs, and marketing at EKK Group. At what moment during those two introductions that you start saying, "No, this is not true. This is absolutely not true. This is even a little bit naive"?
Well, I think I started with the first words. I had these thoughts. But first of all, I have a message to the audience, or two messages, one good and one not so good. I start with the not so good. RTL had secret cameras behind it. And when you rose your hands, you were photographed. It runs through a face recognition software now. You are all registered here at the Congress and you will be prosecuted. The good news is...
Good news, yeah.
If you say it was for private use, I think you will get away with it.
But then this introduction, where it's sharing, it's about sharing. It's not taking property. It's almost some. Yeah, it feels like a very positive approach. Very happy. This is all our information, and we should share it, just like the man said over here.
Yeah, I love the idea in theory, and but I think in practical terms, anarchy, the absence of authority, which has been proposed here, creates a different, exactly the opposite. Because where you don't have any authority, there's jungle rules, and in the jungle, the biggest beast wins. And this is very concrete. If you have something like a digital revolution, which we are facing now, you have fragmentation, you have turn upside down the rules and everything, and you see that the biggest brands, they are surviving very well, because people concentrate on what they know if it's confusing, and they want strong leaders for them. It's a big, and of course they benefit from copyright, the big corporations, but the copyright is really also important for the creators, the artist, the single person, because that's the chance to get money for what they do.
This is interesting. I already hear some reactions in front and at the back saying, yeah, that's not true and so on. We're going to find this out during the discussion. First, we're going to have a crash course copyright, because that's also very important. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Because especially copyright, it can be very difficult to talk about, because of course it has a very clear background. It's also maybe most of the time started very national regulation, but it's changing very fast. And luckily there are some professors who know everything about this, and two of those professors we have in our panel. May I have a warm applause for Raquel Xalabarder. She is law professor specialized in copyright law in the Open University of Catalonia. I'm going to directly introduce as well Ryszard Markiewicz. Is a professor here at the Jagiellonian University here in Krakow. and is also connected to the Institute of Intellectual Law. Just for a start, is there something that was said by the other panelists until now that you say, okay, you can say this, but when you look at the law, it's not true?
Well, before I refer to the panelists, I wanted to refer to one of the answers among the audiences at the beginning. I thought this idea of copyrighted works not being scarce, that you could use it at the same time that somebody else can be using it. It's not like this property, whether I sit on a chair, nobody else can sit on that chair. If I occupy an apartment, nobody else can occupy the apartment. It is true. This kind of property we're talking about, it's not scarce. It can be used, enjoyed by everybody at the same time. This is why it makes it a very special property, we call it. But then I also agree with Oliver what he was saying, that it's the copyright law, the authority is there to regulate what we want to do or what we think it's fair and what we don't like or what we think it's not fair. So when I heard the audience say, oh, since I can do it, I do it, well, I would say let's take a step back and think at how many things we could be doing that we don't do because we think it's not good and it's not fair. So I do believe in copyright. I think it's the best tool as a law that we have nowadays to enhance creativity, or at least to enhance creation, to ensure the authors, the individual authors, as Oliver was saying.
Get your information in a second everywhere. Like if I write it now on my iPhone, it's on the internet, it can be read everywhere. Could you say that the protection of the copyright law at this moment is almost theoretical? That you can't really handle it anymore?
You mean to distinguish between the legal protection, the theory, and the enforcement?
Yes.
Yeah, the possibility. Yes, that's one of the challenges of copyright law. I mean,
challenges is another word for problems most of the time.
Yeah, okay. Good point. I guess that basically when we deal with enforcement of copyright, and in that sense, the ubiquitous nature of copyright, that it can be anywhere in an instant, makes it very difficult to ensure that it will be respected. I'm not going to say protected, but it will be respected. This third, somebody else's right, somebody else's property, we may not call it property, but whatever it is, has to be respected by the users, the whole world. That's what I was saying, that there's no way to enforce it. You don't have enough police, enough claims, enough courts to fight this. So that's why it's very important that we as a society agree that we want to enforce it, that we want to keep recognizing that this is somebody else's property or interest or copyright, whatever you want to call it.
Because, for example, in the United Kingdom, there's a three-strikes-you're-out system. So if you have 3 times an infringement, then I think your internet connection is cut off or so? No?
Yes, you have plenty of, in Spain we're also trying to, put another band-aids, you can say. There's all these efforts, legislative efforts, and also at courts, the claims and demands all over the world, which are just completely useless. It's a question of us. We as a society have to decide if we want to do that or not. This will take us that far. I don't think it will be successful at all. Maybe I'm being gloomy. I'm sure that the industry doesn't want to hear me saying that. I'm sure that they are convinced that they can, win this battle. I don't think this battle is going to be won at courts or by police enforcement or by 3 strikes out. I think it's more a question of, cultural and values, if you let me put it that way.
So we just have to be nice to each other.
Well, that's a good way to begin with.
You can use it for a lot of fields.
Yes.
Okay, we'll try. Maybe during this debate we find a way how you can arrange this. Maybe like a paradigm shift, like Joost was mentioning, or other ways. Maybe legal ways to organize this. And I ask you to also to exactly sit in the middle. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Just to make sure, until now, are there any questions? Something unclear? Something you want to know? Something you feel that's sort of confronting you with something you don't want to? No, okay, this goes very well. Okay, You're listening in the Polish version, I think, but it's... okay, wonderful.
My Polish is excellent.
Okay, well, may I ask you also, there is a microphone on your chair, just to take the microphone. And during the introduction, there were two topics. On one side, you have of course, the business. You have to earn money. If I'm an artist, then I create something, and I would like to make a living out of this. That's just one part. And especially when I am a successful artist and I want to make something big, then I need a lot of money. A lot of money I don't have, so I need some other organization, some other people to give me that money or lend me that money or whatever. Just one part. The money part, we're going to follow the money later on. But first, let's start with also the topic, of course, of this whole conference, culture, creativity. What's the connection between the discussion of copyright and creativity? Is there something, there are people saying, for example, piracy is confused with creativity. Rick?
Today, we're seeing that a lot of artists, a lot of creators, are not creating because of copyright, but despite copyright. The entire remix culture is, to a large extent, illegal, and yet people create. They're not creating because the copyright will protect their work. If they have no copyright, they might even go to jail. And we're also seeing that the copyright monopoly is built today. It's been, unfortunately, hardly skewed to protect the intermediaries rather than the individual creators. So you have a class of very, very financially strong intermediaries who are trying a regulatory capture, as it's called. They are trying to write their profitability into law at the expense of creators. If you look at the record industry, they've been such an effective gatekeeper that musicians dream of publishing a record. Still, I mean, they can publish on the net and reach the entire world in seconds. The average income for musicians since the advent of file sharing has risen 114%. The sale of copies is just going down the drain, and they're finding new avenues of revenue that do not depend on the copyright monopoly.
Okay, we're going to talk about money later on. Just only the fact that you say there is much more creativity and it is bounded now by copyright. It's keeping it back. All of them. Do you agree on that?
I don't know. I don't know any artist who says he cannot be an artist because of copyright. I never met one. I met many journalists, writers, authors, photographers who all say the same, to me at least, and say, well, I'm happy that my copyright is protected. I have a picture, I publish it, and if someone is making money with it, I'm not coming back to the money, but then I'm protected. And this gives me leeway to do what I think is right and what the book I write or whatever. While others could copy it and take away my ideas and pretend it's theirs. For the people I know see this as a threat, and therefore they see copyright as part of a freedom thing. And also I think copyright is a guarantee for free media. And I think all of us know that media, free media, is cornerstone of democracy. So, it needs to be protected by copyright.
Joost, because copyright is supporting free speech.
In the first place, what I said already before, it is an extreme form of censorship. You may not change the work of others, so we are freezing our cultures. That is in any case a dangerous situation for our democracy. It makes us passive consumers, not active citizens involved in creative processes. That's in the first place. That copyright protects artists is a fairy tale. That's of course not true, because most of the artists don't make a penny from copyright. There are few best-selling artists who make lots and lots of money. They have an income cap that's as big as the CEOs and a normal worker. That's a situation we should not tolerate further on, but it's a result of neoliberalism, but we should end. Supporting the business of artists. it does not work, because we have market-dominating forces that keep control on what happens in the field, pushes aside diversity, which we really need to have for the democracy. And there's also another thing, the enforcement question you raised. What we ask, what the business asks from our society is that we put a lot of police in force, and a lot of courts, to protect individual interest. And as we know, we don't have a lot of police force. So in society we should look around, what are really the important issues we like to defend as society, as human values. What would you think about trade in women and children? What would you think about corruption, black money? Are we doing in our society anything about it? Anything, yes, a little bit. Okay, but really not. So why to protect individual interest? Why we can have an own market structure which is much better in all perspectives, and that the industry claims that the police will be used for private interest. Okay, a shame. A shame.
Yeah. Raquel, first the remark, Oliver saying, okay, I don't know any artist that isn't very happy with the fact that there is something like copyright, and on the other side, Joost mentioning it's only profitable for the big artists. Only for them it's interesting, and they are really helped by copyright, and the others aren't.
Yeah. Good. Thanks. No. Does it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree with Rick that creation is not related to copyright in the sense that authors don't create because there is a copyright system there. Of course. I mean, we have Altamira. We have creativity. Thanks God, is related to human beings, and we don't need a legal system that says you can create and you'll be rewarded to create. Of course, granted. But isn't this perhaps the best system that we have found so far to ensure that whoever creates will be rewarded and recognized? Do we prefer other systems such as, for instance, state funding, mecenas, private funding that take away all the property and everything so the author is paid once and forget about it? We have known all these systems all over history. Just look at history. You have plenty of examples. So it is true, this copyright system, and that's why we call it a property, is very much adapted to the capitalist society that we have nowadays. And this is why it's so useful for corporations, to make business plans and invest in creation. They don't create, but they invest into somebody else creating. So I do agree that copyright is not the cause of creation, thank God. Nobody's saying that, nobody's claiming that. I do agree that copyright law should not be there to protect existing business models? No. I mean, copyright has always been dependent on technology, and we have been evolving the copyright law depending on the technology we have had. And that's a new step we need to take now. But I completely agree that it has nothing to do with creation, with business models. And I don't want to repeat myself saying that, it's a social pact, if you want to, that we think it's good. But I'll just...
No, maybe this one. This one, I think.
Yeah, I think another organization is now sort of hacking this conference because they're saying something with the copyright or so. The thing is, you're saying that there is not this connection between creation and copyright. At the same time, of course, Joost is mentioning, but it is a connection, but a negative connection. It keeps people away of being creative. It keeps people away of really entering a market because this market is closed through this copyright. So there is a connection. Now I have to go to you. Yeah, now I will walk to you.
For me, the only negative connection that I can think of as copyright preventing somebody else to create is what we call the transformation right. Copyright grants, well, the crash course a bit, if you let me, that I'm gonna, you know, my professor of nature is gonna come out. Copyright consists of a very simple system. The law grants some exclusive rights to the person who creates. For a limited term, we may think it's too long, too short, and getting there, but for a limited term, and after this term, the work goes into the public domain, so anybody can use it. So ultimately, it enhances cultural richness and creativity. During the time while the work is protected, any act of exploitation has to be licensed. It can be licensed directly by the law, because the law says users can do this and this and this, private copies, teaching purposes, quotations, parodies, or it's going to be licensed by the author, by the owner. And that's how it works, right? One of the, perhaps I was saying, the only negative aspect that this monopoly or these exclusive rights that have been granted to the authors can be negatively applied to other creators is because this bundle of exclusive rights includes what we call the transformation rights, which is the author has an exclusive right to decide how to exploit his work, but not only as it is, but also any transformation of this work. So you may well find, and that's the only possible idea that I think the copyright may be negative, that you may find that this copyright of author A is going to be limiting the creativity, the right of freedom of expression of an author B who wants to create a derivative work of A, right? But that's as far as it goes, the negative.
What we could take from the work without violation of the copyright law is what is original. Or are we taking just the idea or expression? It's easy to talk about it, but when somebody is coming to me and asking, is this infringement of the copyright? Well, I say, well, I think yes, or I think no, but what will be the court decision, I am not sure. And if I, after so long experience, couldn't answer in this question, how the creator have to make his own decisions, what to do and what not to do. And from this point of view, I think we need clarification of law.
And especially, of course, if the other party is, for example, Walt Disney, or is another big organization.
The same for Walt Disney and the same for young kid who is making drawings. I don't want to make a difference in that.
But saying, if I take Mickey Mouse and I make it Mickey Dog, then I don't want to run the risk that I have 25 lawyers on my neck.
Yeah, this is what I agree also with my friend, that we have to think about selectively new legal licenses, just giving more space to the creator of the transformative works, provided that this new work doesn't compete with the source work. Okay. I know it's easy to say it.
I see a lot of non-verbal signals. Rick, Joost, author. Starting with Rick.
Thank you. First, I agree with the notion that there may not be an artist that abstains from creation because of the copyright monopoly laws, but I disagree as to the reason. I think the reason is that an artist worthy of that title never asks for anybody's permission before creating. And that's very, very important in terms of art history and the mindset of creating. But there's a Latin saying, I think it's ibi non accusator, ibi non iudex.
I don't know, it insists on the translation.
Right, it means essentially where there's no accuser, there's no law. It's also been translated to where there's no police, there's no speed limit. So, my point here is that you can't really separate a law from its enforcement. What is the cost to society of enforcing this law? And if it is to be illegal to send digitized works in private communications channels, because that's where they're sent. Anytime we have access to a digital private communications channel, that channel can always be used to transfer copyrighted works. If you're to outlaw that and enforce the copyright monopoly in that domain, that means we need to give up the right to communicate in private, because that means somebody will need to sort illegal from legal information, and in order to do that, they need to look at all of it. That means we need to give up the right to private communication. We need to give up the whistleblower protection for people talking to the press. We need to give up a whole host of very fundamental rights that, frankly, I am not prepared to surrender to business interests.
Okay.
So my first point in discussing specifics of the copyright monopoly is that I agree that it should only cover the original work, and I think that it needs to be reduced to cover commercial activity only. The copyright monopoly needs to stay out of honest people's bedrooms.
Yes. You are a politician. Yeah. Joost.
I'm not a politician, so I can think a little bit more freely about the concept of originality. Few people mentioned originality. Isn't that a romantic concept? Coming from the Enlightenment, individual citizen who expresses him or herself, mostly in the time him, against the king, against the church, it was nice. But to think that someone is making something really original out of nothing, no way. You mentioned making Maes.
Yeah.
Is there something original? No, not at all. It comes from stories that existed already. Harry Potter, something original? No. Restoring, rephrasing of ancient stories. Nothing wrong with it. But to say, now there's an author who has made this, you should understand that the concept of author is a construct. Because we had, for business interest, it started with business interest in England, and to give a monopoly to printers. Therefore you had to have someone who would be entitled to be the originator of something. So the whole concept of author is not something that stays from God or from heaven or from whatever, of Allah or name it. No, it is a construct that says that for legal reasons we think that there is someone who originates something. But that's bloody nonsense. That is not true. I may respect the work of an artist. And there are many artists, I love the work and I respect it and I behave in a respectful way to it. There's something else than to say, we give this artist, this author, this writer, this musician, the absolute right that I may not change it. And certainly all the things those big conglomerates make, I should respect it, I should keep my hands off and be afraid that I will get the letter of a lawyer, and I will get it. I will get it absolutely. And I tell you a story. A friend of mine, he is a theater writer from Calcutta. And there you have something like a carnival and with cars, etc., etc. And one group liked to make something around Harry Potter, just for fun. And there came a letter from Warner. Warner is the owner from the rights of Harry Potter, and was forbidding this. So the whole, it is not only the work, you may not change the work, you may not use it, you may, even the ambience is what the industry is controlling. We live in a heavily controlled society.
Okay.
I'm very happy that in Poland the thing changed for you in 1989 and after, but there's a lot more to change in the whole world.
Okay. When he was talking about big conglomerates, he did something like this to you. At your group.
I think
that's not a small company.
No, it's not a small company. It's Europe's biggest broadcaster, but compared to many other companies, and all the companies mentioned so far, it's quite a small company. I still don't buy the argument of jungle rules. Where do we have jungle rules? Something close to it is the internet, I would say. Because if you look at media, what is regulated? Television, most regulated media ever. Printing, regulated, in some countries still censorship, real censorship. And internet, hardly any rules. So, what are the internet rules? The winner takes it all. Just think of search engines, just think of auctioning, of microblogging, web browsers, and so on. There's a long list of branches in the internet, and basically, you can put one company name behind every this word, and you have at least 50% market share, rather 80. So this is what the internet rules, and I think it's similar to jungle rules, makes. If you have no authority, the biggest beast wins, as I said before. I don't want to repeat myself. And I'm not sure whether this is that good. Everyone can judge on it itself, but some of those I mentioned are closed jobs. They are not open for everyone. They are closed. If for example, on a social network, if the social network machine decides that you are abusing something, they shut you off, and you don't have even a chance to talk to someone to understand why they did it. No chance. There's no state, no nothing. So I want to put it simple. It was said about the complexity of copyright. It's really a lawyer's dream, and I think that we all agree on that this complexity sometimes is really a challenge or a problem. But to put it very simple, I think everyone should decide on its own. If he creates something, it should be his decision whether he would want to share it with everyone in the world, or whether he wants to have it copyright protected. And in legal terms, this means contractual freedom, I think.
Okay. We're very closely getting to the also the follow the money part, because when you talk about exclusive rights, big organizations, then you're going to talk about the money that's behind it. So it's. But before we go into do this, just to make sure which part, the content or the thing.
It's first of all that it is a problem that CD sales are slumping. That you can even sell a CD today, I think, is a sign of an underdeveloped infrastructure. And if you had a fully developed net, you wouldn't be able to sell a CD at all. I mean, it's an archaic form of information distribution. On the other hand, we do see that musicians, on average, are making a lot more money today. They are making, on average, 114% more money.
Sorry, I can interrupt, because this example shows that this is someone who makes a movie, who puts money in it, energy in it, and he ends up with nothing, because somebody is going to put it freely on the internet. And there's no spin-off or whatever. The end result is he won't make any movie anymore.
Right. So we're back to the point where if you're an entrepreneur, your job is to make money given the constraints of society. And Oliver says that he would like the right to determine whether music you make, if I should be able to spread it or not. But I'm not prepared to give Oliver the right to read my mail. If I'm sending Oliver's music in mail to my mother or to the press, I'm not prepared to give Oliver the right to read all my mail to see if I do that.
Okay.
So,
but that's before we get into Oliver. In this situation, you say, okay, this entrepreneur didn't really understand the market, because he, as an independent movie maker, just to say, should understand the market and should have known that he will never get any money for it.
Unfortunately, what I'm saying is that there is no right to profit.
Okay.
Once you're an entrepreneur, you're in this exact same situation as every other entrepreneur on the planet. Yeah. You need to provide something which somebody else is prepared to pay for. If you can do that, you don't need any laws to prop up your business. If you cannot do that, no conceivable law is going to save your business. We are in a transitional period, and there are some people which will find the right recipe and carve gold. Some people will not do that and will lose out. There are going to be a lot of tragedies, but there will be a lot of successes.
Then I get back to the youngster in the beginning saying, but this information is for free. And he can put it on the internet, and the other can use it and use it and use it. So it has nothing to do with exclusiveness anymore, or being a good entrepreneur. It's for free, and if it's for free, I take it. Why not? So there's no business model in it.
again, I go back to where I say that the copyright monopoly must stay out of the non-commercial arena.
Yeah.
It usually wasn't a monopoly for publishers. If you're selling a book in a public bookstore, then fine, the copyright monopoly covers that. But once it crept into the mail I sent to my mother, then I say it's gone too far. Okay. And that means that business models will need to change.
Okay. Start Oliver, Raquel.
May I give a short example, not from a small artist, but from a big one. I happen to be the lucky person in a green room with Carlos Santana, the musician. And it was before a concert, and there was a music manager, and sometimes the situation is tense, and then people talk, and they don't think too much about what they talk. And the music manager told him, "Oh, Carlos, you need to go to Russia. Russia is big." And Carlos was like, "No, you need to go to Russia." And Carlos said, "Yeah, man, Russia is big, but it's all bootleg." And for the time being, the Russians didn't see Carlos ever live. Because he said, "Well, they steal all my music. Why should I go there to promote it?"
Raquel?
I wanted to add that it's about big companies, it's about small business, small artists and small companies, but it's also about all of us. We get poorer if people don't create and don't invest in creation. That's why it's so important that we're ready to pay to reward those who invest in creation. And if you say that copyright should be about commercial exploitation, which I described, then what that company was doing was trying to make a commercial exploitation of his investment. So I think it's a very good example of how, you know, piracy can be so damaging for us all. And I wouldn't...
Yes, sir?
Just a few sentences shorter. First of all, of course, when you are sending a typebook to your mommy or to your friend, it's private use and it's not a problem if you are doing it by the email. There's no question like that. The second issue, which was spreading all the time here, and what is bad part of this copyright is uncertainty. It's a question, if you are downloading music or movie from the internet, is it legal or is it illegal? It's in some countries already decided, in some countries doubtful. In my opinion, right now, for example, in Poland, straight downloading, it's not per se infringement of copyright. It's different point of view if together with the downloading, you are also uploading part of your work. Now, the question is that as the solution is that, in my opinion, it's a proper resolution to say that downloading work from the obvious piracy sources is violation of the copyright. Now, the third point which I would like to mention here is that we have maybe to think about a different legal model, to replace the property model by the liability, that is a model based on the liability rules. But what does it mean? That somebody who is using work without permission, he has to pay for it.
Yeah, we're going, later in this discussion, we're going to find this sort of new solutions, other approaches to find a sort of more or less legal status and also maybe a business model. But Joost, you're one of the big advocates of free flow of information. And you are mentioning also that it can even help creativity. In this case, we maybe lost a beautiful independent movie.
The reality is that the world is changing enormously. And the old tools were not perfect, and the copyright tool was not good. It was something we did not deserve. In the first place, I would say, there's an invitation to university departments of economics to do research about if we have really the paradigm shifts. No copyright, no investment protection, and just normal size of cultural enterprises, no dominant forces. What would be the market? And there's a branch of economics that does research about
the fundamental changes in a branch of industry, and what will be the effect. And I'm amazed that most of the economy faculties don't take up this job. On the other side, I'm not amazed because most of them are quite neoliberal and thinking still about that companies should grow bigger and bigger. Answer to your question, the experience is that many artists, more artists, make more income with the concerts, by buying these CDs, with the concerts, and that internet, people really are prepared to pay for it. Even if you say, you may have it for free, take your own price, make your own price, and that's what we tell as well. The experience is that many artists make much more money than they made before. So the invitation to economy departments is, let us do research, finding out what will be the new business models if we change the paradigms. And it should happen because copyright is in its last phase.
And until that moment, we still keep using this for the independent movies. Until that paradigm shift.
No, because this entrepreneur can do all the things, find new business models.
Yeah, selling ice creams.
And that's exactly what Rick says. There's no guarantee that you make a profit.
Okay. Great. Other question was over here. Yeah, totally at the back. Hello. Because they favor free flow of information.
Well, okay, so in the name of transparency, I'll try to give as full answer as to our funding as possible. When I started to realize that civil liberties were at real jeopardy, I took out a huge bank loan and quit my job to do this full time. Eventually that money ran out. So I begged for donations, and so I was funded by begging for about 18 months until we got into the European Parliament. At this point, I'm formally employed by the European Parliament and our office there. The Pirate Party is not funded by, in Sweden at least, it's not funded by big corporations. It's true that I did a fundraising tour in Silicon Valley. I almost got enough money for the taxi back to the airport. So that wasn't a very huge success. Instead, I lived off of begging for fighting for civil liberties. And the party as such is funded mostly by students who give on the order of 10 euros a month off of their student grants. As for the second part of the question, why is it okay for IT companies to make money but not for media companies? I didn't say that. I self-identify as a capitalist. I think that if you're a successful entrepreneur, you will find a way to offer something that somebody else is prepared to pay for. Where I start to object is when monopolies infringe on fundamental civil liberties. I never objected to anybody making money. If somebody can sell something that somebody else wants to buy, good for the both of them. Good luck.
Yeah, but just to make sure, if I'm going to ask somebody else for a reaction. Oliver, in your case, before investment, putting money to make sure you have a great television program and so on, you say, okay, that's this entrepreneurship. Would you still do this if there's not any copyright anymore?
Of course not, we would not be able to do it. If you remember 2009, which was a very critical year, crisis year, in this year RTL Group invested 3.3 billion euros in content. Of course only because there is the hope and the plan to get even more money back, to get the return on investment, and then reinvest and reinvest. That's the idea of it. And to do so, copyright is the lifeblood for this. If you wouldn't have any copyright, there would be an end of this circle, and you would have to ask who then would have to pay this 3.3 billion or other money.
But the thing is, if you make programs that people like to watch, then you don't have a problem, I just learned. So you just need to do something, like for example, I love Mad Men, for example, or West Wing, and you just have to produce it, and I would like to pay for that.
Yeah, of course, if someone else is broadcasting it at the same time, you have to share also the advertising money with that. I mean, television, I think we're coming to the part of the discussion where we really have to be differentiated between, for example, the music industry and the TV industry. I think the case of copyright is quite different in those two media industries. For television, Territoriality is key, territoriality, and second, exclusivity is key. It's completely different to the music industry. If you have a music hit, it's everywhere at the same time. If you have something on TV, you always have it exclusive. That's part of the deal worldwide. You might like it or not, but that's the way it works. And if someone just copies it and broadcasts it somewhere else parallel and makes advertising money with it, and that's the second point I want to make with television, then you lose the revenue. The second point I want to make about television is that we sort of square the circle, because we give away the product for free to the customer most of the times. That's the principle of free television. And we, at the same time, pay the rights to the rights owner, to the creators. We fund this via advertising or maybe other revenue streams, but it's basically a free product for everyone, and the right owner is still paid, so this model can work.
Raquel, this is of course this argument you can use as a big company, say, okay, we need this also to invest the money. As a lawyer, if you listen to such a story, or somebody comes to your desk, or as a law professor, say, okay, this part is true, this is absolutely true, but this part, now you're sort of abusing it. Now you're abusing our copyright. What's the moment they
understood what happened there? They tried to dominate it and fought each other so much that in the end, today, Apple is dictating their business case. The next in row were the publishers who thought internet, and of course all the people said, give us your content for free, because everyone wants it for free, of course. But the newspapers and the magazines, they are partly funded by selling their copies on the newsstand. But in the internet, they decided to give it away for free. Do I think it was a great idea? I don't think so, because, and if you look how the publishing industry today is fighting for the future, that they can reinvest in independent journalism and also entertaining magazines and so on, you see that it's quite a difficult situation. So, the TV industry has seen all of this. For reasons that are obvious, it's a much broader medium, both in terms of reach, but also in technical terms, because they need much broader bands to be distributed, making money with it. If you're losing money, if your rights are violated, then the broadcasters call the legal department calls YouTube, and this is taken off. So there's the difference between fair use and free ride. Fair use, yes; free ride, no.
And you are able to screen all of Russia, somewhere a small village, somewhere one teenager with a computer, putting Google ads on it, so there will be money earned for this.
No, that's what I said. Free ride, yes. Fair use, yes. Free ride, no.
But you know that the British is doing that there.
Yeah, that's what I said in the beginning. Also, if there's a private use, if you share content, very broadly speaking, if you share content with really your friends, that might most likely be a private use, and no one will prosecute that. If you have a list of 1,000 so-called friends on the social network and you market some content there and you violate copyrights, that's substituting commercial use, and then you will have a problem.
Okay. Raquel, do you think that this model is sustainable?
I was going to add, it's sustainable and enforceable as long as the ISP, the internet service providers, are willing to collaborate. And I think that this is the next big step for authors and owners to deal with the enforcement of copyright online. I mean, so far they've been playing, this give and take. They have these safe harbors, which allow them to just watch, somewhere else. I don't know. I just provide the highways. I don't know what's going on there. But there's also this willingness to, from time to time, when the thing gets really warm, act. There's this notice and takedown procedures that so far are at least helping create this culture and this educational thing. But I still think there should be much more. I'm not talking about policing. I don't think that ISP should be policing or, responsible for enforcing copyright. But I do think that they have much more responsibility than what they are now taking, because they are the big guys now in the market. So far we are complaining about copyright and, intermediaries and producers and publishers. Well, now the big guys are the ISP. Google, the T-Mobile or whoever is providing the service, the internet service.
Yeah.
So they have a big role to play in the copyright
They
market.
have a big role to play, but they also have a lot of favor at the moment that they can keep offering free online content, even other one. So again, the question, should there be maybe a total other approach? Should, for example, Oliver tomorrow with all the managers say, okay, let's put all the wallets on the table, everybody put some money together and buy it off. We can't handle this anymore. An enormous amount of money, a big deal, but then it's finished. We'll never, ever keep the copyright anymore.
I guess it should go to licensing deals and, you know, them getting together and saying, okay, we're all in this market. I produce, you end up putting the highway for distribution. What's in it for me? And, you know, see where they get. So far, they have been, you know, not being forced to be responsible or pay any money for it. But you see the way they do their campaigns, you know. I come from Spain, and, you know, you have Telefonica, Vodafone, or Orange, and the way they sell their services is you download everything for free, 24 hours, anything you want, as much as, you know, as much megas as you want. So, come on, that has to do with copyright infringement, and let's not just say it's not.
Okay.
You know, them be responsible for what they do and what their business model is, which is strictly related to copyright.
Okay, let's go to the 2.0 part of this debate, the last minutes. Because
it's kind of society, but contribute to the enforcement and the respect of copyright. That's what we ask them.
Okay, there. Over here.
My name is Jarosław Lipschitz, and I work for Modern Portal Foundation, which is a small non-profit organization, and we create an internet library. And I must say that I'm a little bit disappointed of this discussion, because by taking things to the extreme, you can ridicule any discussion. You do not have a problem, do we want a copyright or not? Do we want protection or not? The problem we do have is, what is the scope of the protection? What is the scope of the copyright? What is the scope of limitations? And this is something we should really talk about. I mean, think about the current state of the copyright. 70 years after author's death. This is ridiculously long. And I will wait for another 20 years to publish in my internet library works of Thomas Mann, which are classics. Okay, this is ridiculous. And think about limitations. The current educational exceptions, in reality, they do not work on the internet. And the fair use, which is kind of broader than the doctrine we have in Europe, allows for much more than I am able to do right now. So this is the problem we need to cope. I mean, how we create a sane copyright, simple copyright, which answers the problem of copying on the internet. And those are not the questions which, you know, people like me are asking. Those are questions which are asking people like president of World Intellectual Property Organizations. So I was hoping that during this discussion, this will go in this way. I mean, to think about what is the point we want to get, because we are obviously beyond the tipping point. And we cannot rely on enforcement and making things, you know, more restrictive. Because this doesn't work. So we need to pull back and find the sweet spot. And what the sweet spot is, and this is my question.
Yeah. And that's exactly where we are at the discussion at this moment. Looking, what is the sweet spot? Because that was exactly the question, and that was what we're looking for. What is exactly in the extremes we've been mentioning, with the business cases behind it. We are looking for a way how to organize this in the future with all the realities mentioned during the debate until now. If you should give a clue, a sort of how, maybe make it less longer, this copyright, from 50 to 20 years, maybe to buy it off or something like that. What would be just a short idea?
Okay, for Europe, get back. I mean, the no-brainer is get back to the minimum of the Berne Convention, 50 years. I mean, this is no-brainer, and we should do it right now. And then we need to think about what else. And we really need to think about how to make exceptions broader and how to allow non-commercial reuse, because this is crucial for the future of culture. I mean, because we live in the age of the culture of remix. So non-commercial reuse, which should be allowed and should be legal.
Okay. Another suggestion.
Yeah, Igor Ostrowski, good afternoon. Following up on what your question about what can be done, I think the way to move forward is with limitations and exceptions, especially to certain public entities. I think we should look at more rights to libraries, more rights to museums, more rights to archives, and I would encourage everyone to look at the Washington Declaration, which was just signed, which really shows a very interesting way of how we should go forward with copyright reform.
And who do we have to fight for this? Who's going to keep us away from this more exceptions and that sort of thing? So there will be a discussion about this.
Oh, absolutely, because we see that there is an ongoing trend, especially in the internet online market, to try to limit fair use, and actually the limitations and exceptions, there's a tendency, especially in the US, to try to even narrow it down. So for example, if we look at e-books which are now available for rent in libraries very often have a limitation on the number of let's say times it can be rented or given to a particular library user, which in print was never a case. You could rent the book forever. So there is so we also have to look at those, let's say, tendencies of limiting online rights that naturally different types of publishers or different types of or broadcasters in that event naturally use the new technologies for their own benefit. Yeah. So that's
and at the same time accept the fact that the ones who, for example, made those ebooks or whatever will earn less money.
Well, no, because actually they will be earning the same amount of money they did in print. I mean, in terms of library usage, right? Because if we agree that there are certain public entities that we should support, that let's say can be used to, I don't know, develop social capital, bring new culture, let's say caress everything that we've talked about, then those particular entities should have maybe better, bigger rights than those individuals or companies.
One last reaction from Joost here in the front. Yeah, look, there's a sign. Yeah. Last really short term, and it would be, there were some things mentioned, of course, like separating the rights, for example, like a blanket license was already mentioned. This sort of, maybe let's say future, or at this moment happening, but in the future will develop a little bit further, so that we have a clear view on if we have this discussion in 5 years' time, what will be changed, what will happen. Let's start with Joost.
Yeah. Over there. Yeah.
I appreciate enormously the efforts several people here do to try to get this exaggerated form of copyright limited. And, in my best friends, there are liberal copyright scholars who see that it is completely running out of the hand, and this system. And all your suggestions to bring it back to a little bit more normal proportions are very welcome. Nevertheless, we should be aware that, and then we should broaden the scope, that in a society, about all fields of knowledge and creativity, the most part has been privatized. See the pharmaceutical industries. All pieces of knowledge we have for developing new drugs is in the hand of owners. And it means that at the present moment no new drugs have been developed anymore. They are in stock. It's a completely crazy position. So what I try to do, and that's intellectually very difficult, and ask you support in your faculties, in your economy, in your law department, sociology departments, wherever, to think about the catastrophic consequences of this privatization of our knowledge. And that means that we may not use it, that we may not communicate with it, that we get lawyers, that we get etc., etc. And you might be a little bit liberal about it. Thank you very much, and that's what we should have. Nevertheless, we should think about the turnover, about a completely different system of economics. And my question to the Polish presidency is, start to support research about if this does not exist anymore, this system of privatization of knowledge. And that not only concerns the artistic creations, concerns also the question of pharmaceutical industries, the agricultural business. These are in a world in which we have a domination of a few forces about our knowledge, creativity, and we can come to completely other business models.
Okay.
Let us do research in this field. And I don't say that will change tomorrow. Maybe we get the 1989 effect tomorrow, maybe never. But let us don't waste our life. That is, in any case, what I try to do.
Thank you very much. Oliver.
Yeah, first of all, I feel obliged to answer to the statement from the back row about free or not free. A couple of years ago, we did a research about audiovisual content and how it would be used online, and we tried to do it via people pay for it, or whether they advertise, or whether they have to register, and so on. And the outcome always was, if they have a chance to get it free, they want it free. Because that's the business model of television. It might be different for other media, but for television, that's the business model, and this lives on in the digital world, which is concretely what is for audiovisual a theme in terms of copyright. We do have on the table right now, very concrete, the Green Book for discussing the audiovisual industry, copyright in audiovisual industry in digital times right now, and probably it's too late to go through the details of what we will answer. You can be sure that there will be lots of replies from all broadcasters, all other stakeholders there, big discussion. But the bottom line is, for the audiovisual industry, you don't have to reinvent the copyright. Many, many details, but not reinvent it. And the bottom line, again, here is, copyright is crucial that it is functioning, that it is existing, that you are able to reinvest, and that is crucial for creation and innovation.
Thank you. Rick.
In the immediate term, we seem to be mostly in agreement that more copyright does not work. Still, there's going to be a meeting on Monday in the Council of Ministers of the European Union, voting on whether to extend the neighbouring recording rights, neighbouring rights to copyright, from 50 to 70 years in the European Union, essentially stealing 20 years of our common heritage and putting it back into private hands. Poland is going to vote yes. If Poland were to this measure is going to pass by a very narrow majority. If somebody here can convince the people responsible for Poland to vote no, we will have achieved something very important. That extension will not pass. That needs to be done before Monday, and that's something we can accomplish.
Okay.
Midterm.
Friday.
Right. Midterm. What we demand isn't rocket science. We demand the same laws that apply offline, that our ancestors fought, bled, and died for, to apply online as well. The net is in the Wild West. Laws apply there. We demand that laws should apply there. If I write a letter, nobody has the right to open that letter in transit and check if I'm violating a copyright, if I'm copying somebody's poem. I alone am choosing whether to write who sent this letter when I'm putting it in a mailbox. Nobody can force me to identify myself when I post that letter. And third, the mailman is not responsible for if I infringe copyright and has no obligation whatsoever as to the contents of the sealed letter. We demand the same rights that our parents and grandparents had in the physical world to apply to the digital world as well. And it should.
Wonderful.
The mailman does not make money on delivering the letters.
No. We're going to discuss this later on during lunch. Raquel.
As much as adamant as I was before saying we should keep the debate separate, I'll repeat it.
Yeah.
Freedom of expression, privacy has nothing to do with the debate we were having before, which is using, enjoying somebody else's copyrighted work without
Okay, part of the final remarks is there's no reaction from the audience. Yeah, Raquel.
Then, let's keep these debates separate so that we can have a real debate.
Yeah.
They are, trust me. Then the second one is we keep also confusing the debate if we talk about information. Not everything is information, there's words, maybe we call it content, and blah, blah, blah. That said, I do agree we should reform the copyright laws that we have nowadays. No matter how much I feel copyright is the best system we have to encourage creativity and to enhance the richness, the cultural richness of our society, I am also strongly, in all my publications and my work, the work as I do as a researcher and a scholar, have been trying to convey how important it is to have strong limitations, maybe a license, maybe remunerated in very many cases. But it is, for me, exclusive rights without a strong regime of limitations to these exclusive rights is only bad news. We have to have a balanced system. And I agree that the copyright system we have right now is not fairly balanced. So I completely agree. We need to do something with it. Not throwing the baby with the bathwater. We need copyright, but we need a better copyright than the one we have today.